PNR Networks is a member of Patreon. Show your love for our shows by joining our ongoing fundraising campaign and get some fantastic perks in return. Check it out and become a Patreon sponsor. You can sign up at patreon.com, patreon.com/PNR Networks. And thanks for your support.
This podcast is a member of the Blueberry Network. Blueberry. No E's. That's Blueberry, BLUBRRY.com. Blueberry.com.
This podcast is a proud member of the Lamb Podcasting Network. Find the network at largeassmovieblogs.com.
It's Kim versus TC in the battle of the lists.
My list is better.
My list is better.
My list is better.
No, it's not. My list is better.
Kim or TC, who has the better list? From Subject Cinema, this is Front Row 5 and 10 with Kim Brown and TC Kirkham.
Hi guys, welcome to another week here on Front Row 5 and 10, brought to you by the good people that bring you Subject Cinema. That would be me and him, the me being Kim Brown.
And the me being TC Kirkham.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome.
Hi.
Sorry we haven't been around with this show for a couple weeks. This has been just a nuts, and it's a special Saturday edition.
Yes.
Trying to get this up on time.
Mm-hmm.
Want to give you all a word of advice, is if you didn't know, or a word of advisement actually. Front Row 5 and 10 will be off until the first Thursday in January after this week, as we start working on our year-end stuff. So
yes,
we will have a top 10 announcement on the Thursday before the end of the year. So that'll be our Thursday show. And it'll only be like 20 minutes probably. Something like that.
Also, pardon my voice if I sound a little bit...
We're both a little under the weather. Yep.
If I sound a little wonky, my throat's a little sore today. So...
we urge you to listen to this show, and we urge you to send in any list you have. We'd love to see what you've got for an idea. You can send that to frontrow@PNRNetworks.com. And
if you send us a list and you'd also like to add your list, please do that too, because we'd love to read it. You know, I made up this, my suggestion is blah, 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 and here's my list of that stuff.
Right.
We would definitely like to do that, because we'd love to hear your opinions, and we'd love to hear from you anyway.
My choice this week.
Yes, this was your idea.
Top 10 dumbest TV shows.
Yes.
Now, what we're saying here is that we thought the ideas, the concepts were dumb. We thought the shows themselves were dumb. A little bit of everything.
Or we just hated them. I
didn't hate any of these, but I didn't like that many of them. And one of them, I have to admit, is a guilty pleasure. So
okay. All of mine are ones that, there's a few of mine that I remember watching fondly, but now that I look back on them, I'm like, what was I thinking?
Oh, okay.
So, but since you made the list idea, I get to go first.
You do. Number 10.
Number 10 on my list, I'm going to admit I've only seen one or two of these, and boy, I really didn't like them. My number 10 is Teen Titans Go. Teen Titans, when it was brought to the Cartoon Network, I was quite excited about.
Sucked.
And certain of us in this house were less excited.
Sucked.
If you're going to keep commentating, you might want to use one more word maybe, because I think your needle's stuck.
Really sucked. How's that?
Brilliant.
Okay, anyway.
The way that Teen Titans was animated, I was like, okay, so they made the characters a little younger.
Chibis.
They're not chibis. No, this one, they're chibis.
Yeah.
Teen Titans, as I said, when it was done, I was like, all right, this is different. It's not terrific, but it's pretty okay.
Sucked.
But then then Cartoon Network decided to really kick us while we were down and give us Teen Titans Go. The whole idea being just this more humorous, more quote unquote wacky version of Teen Titans. And oh my gosh, I tried watching it a few times. I was trying to tell myself, you just watched it when you were in a bad mood. Maybe when you watch it later on, you'll find it funny. And I was like, F you. I was like, F you, F this, how dare you, and I am out. I don't know what hurt me.
So, how do you really feel, hon?
I don't know what hurt me more, the fact that they did this or the fact that I'm assuming contractually all of the actors that originally voiced the characters in Teen Titans when they took it seriously came back to voice this. Because I was
it could have just been voice, work.
I realize that, but good grief, this is insulting. This is insulting to comic fans. This is insulting to animation fans. This is insulting to just about damn near everybody. My number 10, Teen Titans Go, and it can, as far away from me as humanly possible.
My number 10 is a three-way tie because of the circumstances behind it. It's 3 different shows, but they all concern the same thing.
Okay.
From 1969 to 1974, 75, ABC had a pretty popular, although never a top 10 show, a pretty popular show that focused on a woman, a man, and their 6 children. It was called The Brady Bunch.
Oh, that.
It was
stupid.
A hit until Cousin Oliver came along, and then of course that kind of killed it, according to all the Jump the Shark people.
And the fact that it sucked anyway.
ABC, NBC, and CBS are all at fault for not letting go. My number 10 is a 3-way tie. ABC's 1977, The Brady Bunch Hour, NBC's 1981, The Brady Brides, and CBS's 1990, they should have known better by then, 1990 drama, The Bradys. Now, in all fairness, I liked The Bradys. It was well done. If you were a fan of the show, it was well done. The TV movie that spawned it, which was A Very Brady Christmas, was aired a couple years earlier than that. And I might have the year wrong. It might have been earlier than 90. I thought it was 1990, though. All 3... Well, no, all 3. 2 of the 3 projects had substitute girls. Brady Bunch Hour substituted a great country western singer named Jerry Richelle as Jan instead of Eve Plum. Eve did not want to be stuck in a contract for a variety show.
Right.
She was doing other stuff at the time. She was willing to do a special,
like having a life.
Yeah. The Brady Brides, both Maureen McCormick and Eve Plum returned to. It was and Ann B. Davis was a regular on that too. It was Jan and Marcia sharing the house with their new husbands. It actually got good ratings, but didn't really go all the way. And then finally, the Bradys. It was like drama city. Mm-hmm. Now, in the pilot, or actually the standalone TV movie, A Very Brady Christmas, Jennifer Runyon of Charles in Charge stepped in for Susan Olsen as Cindy Brady, because they couldn't find Susan anywhere. When it went to series, Susan Olsen was back, but Maureen McCormick had now said there was enough, and Leah Ayres stepped in as Marcia. This drama series, by the end of the first series of drama episodes, Bobby was paralyzed in a car racing accident. Marcia had developed alcoholic problem. There were all these other things going on, and I'm like, God, this is not the Brady Bunch. It wasn't supposed to. None of them were terribly offensive. They just weren't very good. The Brady Bunch Hour is actually kind of fun, but
if you like that sort of
and
thing.
The Bradys is a good show. It's just that you can't see the Bradys dealing with those kind of themes because it was more like a Knots Landing Dallas type show. Mm-hmm. The Brady Brides is just swill. Number 10, The Brady Bunch, The Brady Brides, and The Bradys.
Well, you got grabby, crying out loud.
Well, I just figured it would be all together.
No, I know. I'm surprised you didn't chuck the Brady kids in there, too.
No, because that was done with the original cast, and it was done, with the same time the show was on.
Yeah. Number 9 for me is an example of the fact that when something's done, leave it. Don't try and resuscitate it. If it's past...
Oh, you didn't have to put metrosexual McGarrett on this list just for me.
That's because I didn't.
Oh, okay, sorry. I hate the new Hawaii Five-O.
Bless your heart. No, my number...
I don't want a red velvet armadillo cake with gray icing, thank you.
Steal Magnolia's joke.
I'm sure they get it. They're a smart bunch.
My number 9 is the 2009 remake, reboot, sequel that absolutely nobody asked for of Melrose Place. Melrose Place, the original series, which ran on the Fox network, was trashy. It was a typical trashy nighttime soap opera.
Lasted 9 seasons. It did well.
And I liked it. I wasn't a regular watcher, but I knew enough of what was going on. And I happened to like it. It got trashy. It got ridiculous. It was just your typical...
It was a young version of Dynasty.
Yeah, and it was fun.
Which the CW has also brought back.
Excuse me. It was fun, and then it was done. Until 2009, when the CW said, well, we're bringing back Melrose Place.
Because they brought back 90210 the previous year.
Yeah. And I was like, what? Why? But the CW was like, don't worry, you'll love it. But that was the attitude they were giving the fans. So I watched it.
Once.
No, I tell a lie. I tried to watch it. And I said, nope. I was, I just couldn't deal. It just didn't have what I wanted. The magic was gone. The whatever it was that made Melrose Place trashy but watchable, it just wasn't there. And the thing that sucks is it had a really good cast. It had Katie Cassidy, Colin Eggsfield. There were a lot of people in it that were really good.
And Heather Locklear was back for a couple guest shots, too.
Yes, she did come back because they didn't know what to do because the show was bleeding money.
That person that was on the show for 9 years and billed every week as special guest star, Heather Locklear.
Yeah. It just, oh gosh, it was just such a terrible idea. I mean, they brought back Josie Bissett, and it was just completely like, are they going to really, they're going to do this?
She wasn't the only one, was she? Didn't Grant Show come back for a few episodes?
Possibly, I'm not sure. I don't recall. But Heather Locklear came back. I'm like, guys, you really can't go home again. Thomas Wolfe knew what he was talking about. So, my number 9, the 2009 version of Melrose Place.
Lasted 1 season.
Yep.
My number 9 was a really stupid idea to begin with, but it was even more stupid because of the way it was done. It wasn't unusual in the 1970s for the networks, at the time, cable wasn't even heard of at the time. There were 3 networks, ABC, NBC, and CBS. And it wasn't unusual for them to mine popular primetime shows for cartoon versions for the kiddies. Mm-hmm. You mentioned the Brady Kids a few minutes ago. Yep. That's a good example. Well, after 4 seasons on ABC, with dwindling ratings over the last season because they moved it from Friday's cushy slot on Friday to opposite All in the Family, the Partridge Family bit a quick end to their career on Saturday nights opposite All in the Family. That didn't stop CBS from saying, hey, there's more life in this. Let's try this. And so the following fall, on the Saturday morning schedule, we found The Partridge Family, 2200 AD. It was a science fiction music comedy, and the Partridge Family were now transported without any explanation to living in the year 2200.
Question from the audience.
Yeah?
Where was the comedy?
It was future comedy. You don't get it for at least 20 years after.
Oh, okay.
It was terrible. It lasted 13 episodes,
It was
and
awful.
Sadly, Dave Madden, Shirley Jones, Danny Bonaducci, Brian Forrester, Suzanne Crowe, all came back to do their voices for this. David Cassidy was smart. He said no. And I believe Susan Day may have done some of it. I'm not sure. I mean, okay, we've seen fun. I mean, the rip-offs on Saturday mornings were some of them were fun. I enjoyed The New Adventures of Gilligan. That was fun. And it was comedy. I don't particularly care for Gilligan's Island, but for a cartoon, it was fun. The same goes for the Brady Kids. But this was just swill. And it was opposite some other show on I believe, ABC that just pounded it in the ratings, so it was gone in 13 weeks. The Partridge Family, 2200 AD from 1973 or 74.
Okay. This show, I will admit, my number 8 is quite obscure. I know you'll probably...
I have a couple of those.
I know you'll probably remember it because you've got a brain like mine when it comes to pop culture stuff. Well, actually, no, I tell a lie. Your brain, if I picture your brain...
Your brain is a pinball, mine's a file cabinet.
Yes, exactly. that is not an exaggeration, my friends.
No.
My number 8 is a comedy, alleged comedy, from ABC called The Charmings.
Oh, God. That was actually a pretty big hit for a couple seasons, too.
It ran for 2 seasons.
Yeah.
Don't ask me why.
I thought it ran for 3, but I might be wrong. So.
No, it was 2, according to my research.
It had viewers, not necessarily hit. It had viewers.
It was the whole tried and true trope that has been done over and over and over again on TV.
Which they continue to do on Once Upon a Time.
The whole fish out of water idea. The whole plot of The Charmings was thus. Snow White and her husband, whose actual last name was Charming, Snow White and her husband, Prince Eric Charming, and their 2 children, Thomas and Corey, are put into a powerful spell by her evil stepmother, the Wicked Queen Lillian. And they all wind up, along with Lillian, one of the dwarves, a dwarf named Luther, and the Queen's magic mirror. They all wind up being...
I don't remember a dwarf named Luther.
No. Well, that's the Disney.
Was that Dopey's name, real name?
No, that was the...
Okay.
The ones in the Disney thing, that's Disney's version, and that's...
Okay.
We won't do that.
All right. Just checking.
Because Disney has lawyers.
I hated the show, so I really honestly don't know.
Anyway...
my friend Chris loved it. He thought it was hilarious.
They all get zapped into... Well, they all get put to sleep for 1,000 years, and they wake up in what is modern-day, beautiful downtown Burbank, California. And they have to learn...
It's a Wacky's 80s sitcom from ABC!
Yeah. And they have to learn how to maneuver through life in this strange modern world. Blah, blah, blah. Now, for those of you who remember the actual end of the actual story of Snow White and the prince do get married, and the witch queen is brought before them at their wedding. She's forced to wear a pair of iron shoes and dances herself to death. I like that ending much, much better. If that had been the ending of this show, I would have said it was great.
I can't even remember who was part of that cast except Christopher Rich. I don't remember anybody else in the cast.
The only person in the cast that I actually know was the person that played the magic mirror, Paul Winfield.
Oh, right. That's right. He was on there, yeah.
This show sucked. It was awful. It was stupid.
So you didn't like it then?
No. And the dumb thing is, when I saw the show, I had not developed my taste. This actually ran, as we mentioned, in the late 80s, actually.
80s, yeah. 87, I think, wasn't it?
It ran from 87 to 88.
Yeah.
I had not actually started my looking into the lore behind fairy tales and finding out that the original story of most fairy tales were much darker, much grimmer, much more gruesome, and actually a ton sight better than the Disney pablum we got shoved down our throats as kids. So my number 8, we did not live happily ever after. Anybody that was dumb enough to watch The Charmings.
It had a cult following, and that was about it. I don't know. My number 8 is a show nobody's going to remember because it lasted, I think, 4 weeks on CBS. But it was cute in the way that it was done. It was a detective drama called Tucker's Witch. Do you remember this?
I've heard of it. I've never seen it.
Tucker's Witch stars Tim Matheson as a private investigator and Catherine Hicks as his wife, a suburban housewife who happens to be a witch.
Now, when you say a witch, do you mean
it was Bewitched with detectives. This was the first place...
You don't mean a Wiccan, do you? You mean...
No, I mean a witch. Although she was new at it. So it's like Hermione Class 1.
Pardon me, I think I have to go run my head into a wall.
This was the first place I ever saw Catherine Hicks, who has become, a major face thanks to her Star Trek connection, plus her 11-season run on Seventh Heaven.
Yeah, I think so.
And she's just a great actress, and Tim Matheson's always been good. But this show was just so stupid. I don't remember. Somebody else played her mother. I don't remember who it was. And it was Murder, She Wrote with witchcraft before Murder, She Wrote came along. Just all in all, just a stupid program. And it didn't last very long, fortunately for both their careers, I think. Number 8, from 1982, I believe, possibly 83, Tucker's Witch.
All right. This one, my next one it lasted a season, but I have to be perfectly honest, when I saw it, I was kind of like, is this a spoof? I'm like, are they taking the piss here? I really don't know, because number 7 has one of the most ridiculous titles you're ever going to hear for a TV show.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said, I honestly couldn't tell if they were trying to make a parody of the original, a straight-off rip-off of the original. I don't know what these people were doing. It was a show that ran on the USA Network with the absolutely unenviable name of Tattooed Teenage Alien Fighters from Beverly Hills. Sweet mother of all that is decent and holy. For those of you who have always turned up your noses at Sentai shows like Power Rangers and that kind of a
This
thing.
was USA's attempt to get in on the Power Rangers craze, and it was terrible.
This show
I forgot about it. I would have had it on my list, too. It was terrible.
This show made Mighty Morphin Power Rangers look like Downton Abbey.
Yeah,
I mean,
pretty much.
Oh my gosh, this show was bad.
Low budget, badly acted, Canadian. It was Canadian.
It was it was from DIC.
Yeah, maybe not then.
It was... Oh. It was basically the same story as Power Rangers, but instead of Angel Grove, it was actually supposed to be set in Beverly Hills, California. The whole idea of 4...
As opposed to Beverly Hills, Kansas?
Well, they had to bring that up pretty much every friggin' episode that it was set in Beverly Hills. The 4
it's
teenagers...
Part of the title.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
But you think that would be enough to bring it up in the title?
Oh, great. It's Power Rangers crossed with 90210. It'll be a big hit.
Yeah,
oh, jeez.
please.
Okay. I can't believe I forgot about that one.
The 4 teenagers who get brought together by an alien.
Teenagers. Dr. Evil quotes.
Teenagers. Quote. Brought together by an alien. Gosh, this to battle an evil emperor from outer space. Boy, this sounds like something else, and I just can't.
Power Rangers.
Really? Oh my gosh! I watched the first episode because the title intrigued me.
We left about 10 minutes into it, didn't we? Or did you sit through the whole thing?
I sat through the whole thing because I was like, I'm going to tough this one out. Damn it! I was sitting there going, is this a spoof? I mean, maybe it's like an airplane kind of a thing. I don't know. As I tried to watch it, I realized...
Nobody named got their start on that, did they?
No, not as far as I know.
Thank goodness.
Although they did do a tie-in, apparently, with another show called Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad.
Oh, that was syndicated. I remember that one, too.
Which was just as awful, but didn't have such a ridiculous title. At least that one sort of sounds a little more superhero-y.
He had a good cast, though.
But this movie... This thing is terrible. This show was just awful because I realized, oh my gosh, they're being serious about this. Wow.
Yeah.
I feel so bad for these actors.
Yeah.
So my
it was like what? It was like it was like a Power Rangers TV series if it was made by Troma.
Yeah, except they couldn't show any boobs.
Right.
Or any gore.
I mean, low budget costumes.
Yeah. Think of the worst Power Rangers episode you've ever seen, and now picture that episode directed by Tommy Wiseau. And
oh Lord. Oh, good God, no.
And you have my unlucky number 7, tattooed teenage alien fighters from Beverly Hills.
I totally forgot about that one. I'm glad you had it on your list.
Good grief.
My number 7 is often mentioned as one of the worst television shows ever made. Not necessarily the worst, but one of the worst. And I watched most of them as when they were on, and I kind of understand where they're coming from. The 1970s would be known, as opposed to the 1980s, which were known as the Al Franken decade, according to Al Franken. The 1970s was the decade of Fred Silverman. Fred was a whiz program manager at the various networks. He started with CBS. He was the one that shepherded All in the Family and Maude and their big hits to prime time and turned them into big hits. ABC lured him away to bring their fortunes up, and he worked his magic touch again and brought Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley, Mork and Mindy, and all of those into fruition. And then NBC said, "Hey, Fred, come over here." So he did. And his golden touch died. Of all the shows Fred Silverman put on the air on NBC, only one of them, Different Strokes, was an actual hit. Everything else he did died within at least no more than 2 seasons. There was Turnabout. There was Mrs. Columbo. There was another show a little further up on my list. And there was the most expensive television show ever produced up to this time. Number 7, Supertrain. Supertrain was this Love Boat type show. Another show Fred was responsible for at ABC. But it was a drama. It was actually a mystery suspense kind of drama. There would be intrigue going on this gigantic double wide train that ran on one track between coast to coast, and you got from, I think it's New York to Denver. It didn't even go to Los Angeles in 36 hours, which really is kind of slow. But, you know, when you can go that distance,
the TV show.
You can,
So it's Bullet Train, the TV show.
It wasn't even a bullet train. If you were on a bullet train in Japan, you could go that far on a Japanese train in about 8 hours, not 36. So it's interesting. It changed casts 3 times during the show's run of engineer, purser, chef, bartender, so on and so forth. And the reason it was the most expensive series ever produced was the train itself. It had a mock-up. They had to have a long mock-up in various stages where they could shoot it going around fields, around dirt, around desert, around wheat fields, and stuff like that. The model cost more than this is in $1979. It cost more to build the model for Supertrain than it did to build the model of the Enterprise for Star Trek The Motion Picture.
That's funny.
And it lasted, I don't even think it lasted 13 episodes, because it ran 4 or 5, was yanked from the schedule, came back with a new cast, yanked again, and back for 2 more episodes with another new cast. It was a disaster. The train itself, when you look at it, is a very sleek, cool thing. But if you've seen The Big Bus, which is a terrible disaster movie, we did it last year on Masochistic March.
And if you have seen The Big Bus, we're really, really sorry.
Oh, I know people that like it, including our buddy Eric Lyon. It is out there. Number 7, The Folly of Fred Silverman and the reason he didn't have a job after that year. 1979's NBC debacle called Supertrain.
Okay. Number 6 on my list. Now, I realize, everybody's got their own tastes, and certain things are going to appeal to some people that won't appeal to everybody. What one person finds hilariously funny, somebody else might find extremely offensive. Mm-hmm. It's all a question of appeal.
Yeah.
Having said that...
Uh-oh. Look out, folks.
Honest to blog, have no idea who this show was supposed to appeal to. And also, I never want to meet the people that this show appealed to, because they are some scary effing individuals. My number 6 is a show from Cartoon Network's late night programming, Adult Swim.
Yeah.
It was a show called Squidbillies.
Oh, okay. I was figuring it was going to be the more obvious Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
No, I've never
understood why people got into that either.
I thought about that one, but I was like, I ain't kicking that dog. No, I'm not doing it. This show is... I'm like, what were you people smoking? Or snorting? Or... what kind of fever dreams were you having? I know some people go along with the idea of dream journals and writing down dreams and fantasies and things like that. But if these are the things that you see in your head, my God, seek help.
I've never seen this show. I've heard of it, but I've never seen it. So
it's the story of the Cuyler, C-U-Y-L-E-R family, who are a family of squids.
Well, Squidbillies, yeah.
Who live outside of the water, by the way, in Georgia. They're redneck squids. That it seems like absolutely
where the Billies part comes in.
Yeah. Where absolutely nobody has a problem with the idea of this, apparently, in this town, where there are human people living. And I have no problem with alternate life forms at all. I'm totally open-minded like that. I'd like to think I am. Mm-hmm. But, when the whole idea of this series is making fun of abuse, absentee parents, drug addiction, all kinds of other stuff that I realize going uncomfortable places is a form of humor, and I understand that, and I get that.
It was Adult Swim, too. It wasn't aimed at kids.
And it is Adult Swim. No, I never thought that this was aimed at kids. But, oh my God, I was like, who? What? Why? Just why? By the end of the first episode I saw of this, I was like Marlon Brando in Apocalypse Now. The horror. I was completely...
You were wishing for little Lisa Rental to come start bugging them, right?
I was like, oh my gosh.
Cheap in the big city joke.
And this thing is still on, as far as I know.
I think it is, yeah.
So, it appeals to some people, and that's great, but I'm terrified. This thing scared me more than any horror movie I've ever seen.
We are going in search of the outraged squid. The land squid.
So my number, this movie, if I was from the South, I would be seriously offended. If I was from this part of Georgia, like in the hill country of Georgia, I think I'd be monstrously offended. But, whatever. Different strokes, but it's just not my cup of tea at all. My number 6, Squidbillies.
My number 6 isn't a terrible show, but it wasn't a good idea. The timing wasn't right. For many, many, many years, a man named Johnny Carson held court in late-night television. He started on The Tonight Show in 1962 and would finally end his run in 1992, 30 years later. Uh-huh. He was an institution, and there was a reason why. Carson was brilliantly funny. He was terrific with conversation, and he knew his audience backward and forward.
Yeah.
Over the years, many, 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 many people would take him on in late night. Joey Bishop tried and failed. Regis Philbin tried and failed. Merv Griffin tried and failed. And that's just on CBS ABC. Jack Parr came back and tried and failed. Dick Cavett tried and failed. To the point where the networks were just pretty much running, repeats after 11:30, or local stations were running movies or whatever. In the late 1980s, CBS decided, Carson's getting long in the tooth. We're going to take a run at it again. This despite they tried a talk show in the mid 1980s again, and it bombed. Not CBS, ABC tried one in the mid 80s and bombed, and they tried again in the early 90s and it would bomb. It was called Into the Night with Rick Dees. But this show had everything going for it: a personable host, great camaraderie with his sidekick, a terrific premise and everything behind it. It would go live. Not live to tape like Carson, but live to the East Coast. And it would go back. Carson had been 60 minutes since 1981. It would be a 90-minute program. The problem was the host, while likable, wasn't really suited to the talk show genre. Despite the fact that I enjoyed the show when I watched it, he's much better on Wheel of Fortune. My number 6 is the Pat Sajak Show from I believe it was from 89 and 90. I'm not sure. May have been a little earlier than that. He left the daytime Wheel of Fortune to do this talk show. He was succeeded by Rolf Benerschka, who lasted about 6 months, and then they replaced him with Bob Goen when it jumped to CBS. But Sajak has great delivery. He's fun. He's also bland. And he couldn't relate to so many of the more crazy acts that came on the show. He's a conservative in Hollywood, which is very rare as it is, and he was just out of his element. His chemistry with his sidekick, a man named Dan Miller, who we lost a couple of years ago, was brilliant. And they were best when they were talking with each other. When the guests would come out, things would start floating to sea. And so much so that they eventually cut it to 60 minutes and changed the format where there was no live audience and it was just him talking like the old Tomorrow Show with Tom Snyder used to be. Nothing could save it. It lasted 18 months, despite a 5-year contract with Sajak. It was terrible. And, it was fun and it wasn't terrible, but it was just dumb.
It was boring.
Yeah. And it was a dumb idea. Once Carson retired in 92, the fields opened up again, and now we have a whole slew of late-night people out there like Seth Meyers, Jay Leno was there, and now Conan O'Brien, and
James Corden,
Jimmy Kimmel, and, and Stephen Colbert, with Letterman's retirement. And, it just, Sajak, it just didn't work for the time it was done. So, dumb idea. Not a bad idea, but a dumb idea at the time. Pat Sajak Show, number 6.
All right. Number 5, I will admit I watched when I was a younger person.
Oh, I watched several of these.
I watched it, and to be perfectly honest, didn't really notice the plot, the special effects, the acting. I didn't really notice anything except for the fact that the male lead was really handsome.
One of those shallow Kim moments.
Yep. Well, it was just at the point in my life when I was a blossoming, doe-eyed adolescent.
A hormonal female teenager.
Well, yeah.
Yep.
I prefer to view it as a blossoming, doe-eyed adolescent teetering on the edge of womanhood. But if you want to
That's the same thing.
Yes. I like my description better.
Okay.
My number 5 was one of NBC's many forays into the science fiction genre. NBC, who has about as much luck with that as Fox, because they tend to have really cool science fiction.
No, the Orville's been renewed for a second season.
Yeah, but look at all the other science fiction stuff Fox had that they had to know what to do with. Hello, Firefly. We see you over in the corner. My number 5 was Manimal. Manimal was a show that the sad thing is Manimal falls into another category: wasted potential. The whole idea of Manimal was it was a drama laced with fantasy elements about a rich young man named Dr. Jonathan Chase, who had inherited the power while he was in Africa with his father, who was a missionary. He wound up with the power to change into any animal he wanted to, and use these powers along with his the people he was involved with, a young woman named Brooke and a gentleman named Ty, he was using these abilities to fight crime. Now, if you did a series like this now, with all the special effects that we have now and all the CGI and stuff like that, it might actually be pretty cool. As it was back then, special effects and makeup done by Stan Winston or not, it was clunky. It was weird. It didn't come off well. And I can say all that now, considering back at the time, I was just looking at Simon McCorkindale and going,
yeah.
I'm sorry, I have needs. But
the effects transformations were inspired by American Werewolf in London. They were downright creepy.
Yeah. See, that's the I
problem watched it a few times too.
The problem is American Werewolf in London, you had the bones cracking, you had a lot of screaming going on. It had a much more visceral feel to it. I think with this show, they were trying to go for the, David Banner transforming into the Hulk kind of a thing, and it didn't work. It didn't come off that way. If you look back on them now, it's like, wow, seriously, guys, what were you thinking?
There were a lot of high concept shows around that time. Tucker's Witch was on around then. So was Automan. They were just ridiculous.
Yeah, my number 5, Manimal.
My number 5 is a tie only because it's the same thing.
All right.
And I only saw one episode each of one, and the first one was terrible, and the second one was good, but it didn't get picked up. When you make an adaptation of a television series from another country, you need to make sure that the television series is well done, especially if the original series is beloved in its own country as well as in America through cable or PBS or whatever. They've done well with it over the years. Steptoe and Son in England became Sanford and Son here. Yep. Till Death Us Do Part became All in the Family.
Man About the House became Three's Company. Yep.
And there's one show that nobody seems to be able to transform into America successfully because it isn't John Cleese. Twice, the networks have tried to make an American adaptation of Cleese's 8-episode, one season, 8-episode series called Fawlty Towers. Now, I'm not a big fan of Fawlty Towers either. You are. You love it.
I loved Fawlty Towers.
In 1982 or 83, ABC tried it with B. Arthur. It was called Amanda's by the Sea, and it was unwatchable. Now, that says a lot considering I love B. Arthur. I've loved her in everything I've ever seen her in, except this program. Her character is so unlikable. You have
seen the Star Wars Holiday Special, right?
Her character is so unlikable and so thoroughly obnoxious. At least there's something likable about Basil Fawlty.
Where?
Well, you gotta like him to watch it. Right?
I gotta be honest, I don't like Basil.
All right, well, fine.
The fact is that he's so rotten to his guests and his staff that it's kind of like you sit there and wait for him to do something dumb and have everything falling down around his ears.
Or whatever. In 1995, CBS tried it again. This time with John Larroquette as Payne. Now, Payne was actually really funny. We watched it. We thought it was good. It didn't hurt that what's-her-name was part of the show. The woman that played Basil's wife.
Oh,
wasn't she playing?
Bonnie Booth?
Wasn't she in?
I don't remember.
One of the ladies from Fawlty Towers was involved with Payne.
Okay.
And it was funny, and it lasted 3 weeks. Never make them unless you're sure they're going to be a hit. Another one, a good example of another one that bombed was the American version of Ab Fab.
Yeah.
And the American version of Red Dwarf.
Yeah.
Don't make them again.
And the American version of Coupling.
Yeah. So, if you do it well, like The Office, it works. If you do it badly, like Fawlty Towers, Amanda's by the Sea in Pain didn't work. Number 5. Tie.
No, you're absolutely right. It was a terrible idea.
Dumb idea.
I don't really remember if someone from Fawlty Towers was involved with that, but anyway.
I thought they were.
I don't know,
though. I might be wrong.
Well, Jo Beth Williams played the Sybil part, John Larroquette's character was Royal Pain.
Right.
And his wife, who was Sybil in the original, that was Jo Beth Williams, who played Constance.
Okay. Anyway.
Number 4. Number 4 on my list is another example of... sorry, I had to take a drink. Another example of what happens when you have an established character in another medium and you try and bring him to the small screen in a live-action way, and you decide, well, we're going to go our own way and do our own thing and make this our own...
I know where this is going.
Our own brand. Guess what? The fans of the original are going to give you the old Stone Cold salute, and they're going to run in the other direction in droves. My number 4 is The Amazing Spider-Man.
I knew it.
I know some people are probably going, what? That was a great movie. Andrew Garfield was fantastic. No, not that one. The Amazing Spider-Man was produced by CBS, ran on CBS, in the late 70s, starring Nicholas Hammond, who probably his other well-known work would be being in The Sound of Music.
Yeah.
As a college-age Peter Parker, who gets bit
Maybe
by...
a grad student.
Huh?
Maybe a grad student. He looked way too old for college.
Maybe. I don't remember exactly. Who is bitten by a radioactive spider, great power, great responsibility, blah, blah, blah.
Not a great show.
Except we don't get any of that. We don't get Aunt May. We don't get Uncle Ben. We don't get any supervillains. We get nothing. We get a lame, soulless attempt to cash in on the slight superhero bump that was going on TV in the late 70s.
It was brought about because Wonder Woman and The Incredible Hulk were both ratings hits.
Right.
So
I watched this, and I remember sitting there going, why isn't he talking? I mean, that's one of the things that, to me...
Well, he talked a little bit. Don't confuse him with the Electric Company version of Spider-Man.
Well, no, there were no word bubbles or anything
right,
like
but
that.
he spoke every now and then.
He spoke every now and then, but this wasn't the Spider-Man from the comics. The Spider-Man...
That you swear up and down happened back then, that I don't remember at all until the 1920s.
Anybody out there that wants to... seriously, if you guys can settle this between him and me, please... By the 70s, wouldn't it be fair to say that the Spider-Man in the comics had the same smart mouth that he has now?
I don't think so.
Okay, if you guys...
The only one every Spider-Man I ever saw from the 70s was morose and more like, maybe he made a quip now and then, but it wasn't the nonstop quips that Tom Holland's version has been, or Andrew Garfield.
I think that part of the character had come around by then.
Mine was more the Peter Parker that Tobey Maguire played.
Maybe I'm wrong, but I seem to remember that back in the 70s. If I'm wrong, guys, let me know. But I'm sorry, there were no supervillains in this. I'm like,
terrorists and such. Yeah.
Huh?
Terrorists and such.
Terrorists,
well,
ninjas,
it worked for Wonder Woman.
Stuff like that.
Wonder Woman didn't have any of her classic villains except
Baroness von
Gunther in the early 40s version.
Right, I know. But I was like, this sucks. This isn't Spider-Man. Besides the fact that the thing that really drove me insane was the fact that his webbing was out of this enormous silver bracelet. The webbing looked like a rope, which is what it was. And the fact that he had this enormous, clunky
and he
silver...
didn't use it except as nets.
Yeah.
He didn't swing from building to building.
Off of buildings or anything like that. And this enormous, clunky silver bracelet that he might as well have had a big T-shirt on that said, "Hi, I'm Spider-Man." So, my number 4, The Amazing Spider-Man. No! Bad Marvel! No cookie!
Not amazing either. My number 4 is a guilty pleasure of mine, and I freely admit it. It's a stupid cartoon, but I've always enjoyed it because, well, it's kind of cute. In the as opposed to TV series becoming cartoons in the 70s, In the 1980s, the networks had decided, hey, we can make toys into cartoons. Later on in the 80s, we would get Transformers and Captain Power, which was a live-action show, but it was connected to toys. But this one didn't make any sense at all. At least Transformers were robots, and Thundercats were animals, but I'm sorry. You find sentience in a puzzle is beyond me. My number 4, Rubik, the Amazing Cube from 1983 or 84. I admit freely, I was drawn in by two things. Ron Palello from Welcome Back, Kotter did Rubik's voice, and the theme song was performed by Puerto Rican rock group Menudo. Those were the only two things that pulled me into the show. It's a
You liked Ron. You thought he was funny.
I love Ron Palello. We lost him way too young, and it was like, he was only 60, I think, and it was terrible. And he was a brilliant actor, and, I mean, they screwed up his voice, of course. I think it was processed. I don't know. But how do you get, it's like Rubik turns into a little genie. And I will give them credit. It was the first Saturday morning cartoon to feature, the family featured in the show were Latino. First time that had ever happened. And it was really funny. And that's where I learned words like vamonos, which I'd never heard before. Mm-hmm. I was not a big fan of Carrasco Lendes or Villalegre growing up. So, but I mean, it's a dumb premise. It's Scooby-Doo with a Rubik's Cube, basically. And it's one with a face and ears and legs, and it can talk.
I'm sorry, if I saw that, I'd run like hell. Not for nothing, but I would.
It lasted one season, and incidentally, the last 5 minutes of it, it was only 25 minutes long, and it would end at 10:25 when Menudo on ABC would run. Menudo on ABC was a element later acknowledged as part of the Schoolhouse Rock family that was teaching. Menudo did 5 or 6 or 7 different songs, partially in English, partially in Spanish. And that's what they were doing with that. So, number 4, right. Guilty pleasure. It is still funny. Rubik, the Amazing Cube.
Okay.
Number 3.
My number 3 is a show that, now, I realize now looking back, maybe I'm not getting the joke of this, but at the time I thought, and I honestly at the time I didn't read the small print on the credits, that it was all, to use a wrestling term, a work. But I didn't like it then because I thought it was cruel. I don't like it now because I thought it was cruel. My number 3 was a show called the $1.98 Beauty Show.
Oh yeah, Chuck Barris and his Chuck Barris and his craziness struck again. Yeah.
Yeah, the $1.98 Beauty Show was the brainchild of Chuck Barris, the creator of the Gong Show,
and the Newlywed Game, and the Dating Game.
Yep. The subject of the film Confessions of a Dangerous Mind. Which, if any of that is true, that guy was a lot weirder than I even thought he was, and I thought he was pretty strange to begin with. The $1.98 Beauty Show was a parody of the whole beauty contest concept, and featured 6 women who were supposed to be the contestants, and they were judged by the guest panel. The host being flamboyant comedian Rip Taylor. This is another one of these shows. Now, I am not, and never have been, will never claim to be, politically correct.
No.
I don't want to be. I'm just a person. I'm just a girl trying to make her place in the world. You
believe in common decency.
I believe in the fact that, somebody's funny because they're fat and they're in a bathing suit. Isn't that hysterical? No. It's mean.
Especially not in this day and age.
No. It's mean. Somebody's funny because they're a man dressed up as a woman and it's so obvious. Isn't that funny? No. That's mean. I just thought this was cruel. I realize now that I'm older, that this was all, they knew who was going to win at the end of every episode.
It was scripted. Yeah, it was scripted.
It was scripted. It was predetermined, and everybody was in on the joke. But, having said that, you're
still cruel.
Yeah, you're still the person that has to walk down the street the next day and have somebody walk up to you and say something nasty because they saw you on this show last night where the whole punchline was the fact that you're a heavy woman wearing a bathing suit. No. I'm sorry, no. And the fact that people back in 1970... 78.
Okay.
Didn't look at this and go, Chuck, no, we can't do this. That's just...
Well, he's also the guy that came up with Three's a Crowd. Who knows you better, your wife or your secretary?
Yeah, I know. I'm sure that killed a couple of marriages.
And a few more later when they brought it back on Game Show Network with Alan Thicke as the host.
Like I said, I am not a politically correct person, and this whole this shaming and that shaming and all that, I don't even go in for that. But, no. No.
So, no.
So, my number 3, the $1.98 beauty show, which left me with such an extremely bad taste in my mouth and made me feel like by the end of watching it, I was covered in a thin layer of slime.
Did you watch it more than once?
Tried to,
Okay. My number 3 is what happens when a network can't get enough of a good thing. When you have a hit television series that makes oodles and oodles and oodles of money for the network over the course of a decade or more, when that show has run its course and is ready to call it quits, the network brass start running around like 3-year-olds. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? These are called creative writing sessions. That's the best part. All 3 of my top 3 fall into this category of 3 of the creative writing. Concept, high concept, was the term that became known for this in the 1980s. But even a high concept can be a terrible idea. MTV Cops turned into Miami Vice, ran 4 years, was a big hit. Manimal
and then they tried to make it into a movie and it tanked. Manimal
was another movie series that was high concept. This wasn't high concept. This was desperation. The people involved with it should have known better. Now, I watched it, both seasons, and I was like, okay, it's not really very good, is it? I felt really bad for the people involved because they were 3 of my favorite characters from the other show. But Larry Gelbart, oh God, all my witnesses, God is my witness what possessed you to come up with After MASH.
Yeah.
After MASH was the most dreadful program ever to come out of a multi-award winning show. It transferred Colonel Potter, Father Mulcahy, and Klinger back to Kansas, where Potter was from, and he invited Mulcahy ended up coming because he lost his hearing in the final episode of MASH when a bomb went off near his ears. And Klinger had ended up in jail in Toledo, and Potter called him to come help work and basically they got back together again. No amount, David Aykroyd was supposed to be the sort of Hawkeye-ish character here, and he didn't last very long. And Peter Michael Getz was Potter's other doctor with him, and I became a fan of his. And there was a guest appearance in the second season by Gary Berghoff as Radar. But MASH was a successful comedy drama for one reason: its ensemble, and I mean full ensemble, actors, writers, and directors who knew each other like the back of their hand and were able to move in and out of all the different nuances they wanted to do with precise, oiled precision.
Yeah.
It is why MASH is considered one of the greatest television series of all time. It still runs on MeTV every night. It still runs, I think, on TBS every night. It's everywhere. You can't see enough of it. And 30 to 40 years later, it is still hilariously funny. I don't care what you do with Aftermath, burn them for all I care. It never was funny. And I feel bad for Harry Morgan, Jamie Farr, and William Christopher for getting stuck in that terrible show.
Yeah.
And none of them have done series television since.
Well, Harry Morgan passed away.
Well, so is William Christopher,
Yeah,
but
that's
Jamie
true.
Farr
Yeah.
is still around doing stuff for MeTV. But I'm saying they could have worked, and they didn't.
Well,
Number 3, Aftermath.
okay. Number 2 on my list.
Shame on you, CBS.
Yeah, number 2 on my list. Now, this is we're going to admit these are all opinions. These are all our.
Stop couching it. They know that.
No, I have to do that with this one, and you'll understand why in a minute. I am
Something
not
super popular, huh?
I am not the core audience for this show. I have actually never sat down and watched a full episode of this show because I can't. Because I watched maybe 5 minutes and went, oh no. No, no, no. Number 2 on my list, 4 words. Evil, purple, demon thing. Also known under its real title,
I love you, you love me.
Barney and Friends. Barney and Friends was a TV show about a singing purple dinosaur and all of his friends teaching children how to be nice and blah, blah.
Barney says not to talk to strangers. Barney says don't talk to strangers. Barney says don't talk to strangers.
Now the reason
Barney says don't talk to strangers.
Now, the reason I bring all that up earlier, now you know why I brought it up. Because the people who created Barney had this really bad habit of suing people who said anything negative about Barney.
Mm-hmm.
Even
They
though,
learned their lesson. The court slapped them down and fined them terribly one time.
yeah.
So.
Even though, in my opinion, Barney was cloying, idiotic, more sugary than all of the sugarcane fields on the entire planet Earth, and just plain horrifying.
I think that the sugarcane thing is a little too much there.
All
Maybe
right,
Hawaii.
half of the sugar
Maybe
cane.
Hawaii. Not the whole world.
I'm sorry. Now, we don't have children, but there is no way in heaven or hell I would let my child watch Barney.
No.
I would rather have my child watch a show about real dinosaurs than have them watch Barney.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
I'm just, the first time I ever saw that thing, I felt something inside my body go, that is the enemy. It was, I just couldn't.
We've gotten several jabs in it in our offline writing quite a bit.
Yes. I just can't imagine anybody sitting, I mean, my sister's children one of my sister's children had a Barney doll. Trust me, that thing did not stay in the same room with me at any point in time if I could help it. I'd be like, we're just going to put Barney over here. Barney's going to go visit the other room now. That show was a nightmare. And I don't mean a nightmare in a good way like the Twilight Zone or stuff like that. No, I mean nightmare in the worst possible way.
Nightmare-inducing would be
yes.
better.
Oh, my gosh. My number 2, Barney and Friends. Ugh.
If you actually want to see what we feel about Barney and Friends, look for the Animaniacs episode Baloney and Friends.
Baloney and Kids.
Baloney and Kids.
Yeah.
It is absolutely hilarious. My number 2 is another one of the gems that Fred Silverman came up with at NBC. And, I don't see anything wrong with this concept.
Oh, this is going to be good, folks.
I don't
Hold
see
on.
anything wrong with this concept. Let's see. It's going to be an hour long, and it's going to be music and comedy, like Carol Burnett. And there's going to be sketches and fun, like Donnie and Marie. Hey, that was a hit when I was at ABC. Carol Burnett was a hit when I was at CBS. I can do it again. Hey, you know what? Let's make it really fun. Let's put 2 Japanese women who can't speak English as the leads. And we'll pair them with a comedy, a comic that nobody knows. It was the spring of 1980 and the debut of one of the most reviled variety series to ever hit television. Officially titled Pink Lady, the title it's best known as is Pink Lady and Jeff.
I'm sorry, who knows it?
Well, people around it when I was there.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, no, I meant now.
Oh, I don't know about now. Pink Lady and Jeff starred me and Kay, the Japanese duo known as Pink Lady, they were J-pop hits, and they still perform together even now occasionally. And they came over, and they had released their first American album, and they had a hit that summer called Kiss in the Dark. They had appeared on Leif Garrett's Variety Special on CBS the year before, and that's where Silverman saw them. Kiss in the Dark was out when they were on there. So they had this one hit. It barely scratched the top 40. Mm-hmm. And all the songs were done phonetically. They didn't speak a word of English.
Like Nana when she sang 99 Luftballons into 99 Red Balloons.
They were pretty girls. They were 20 and 22 or 21 and 22. So they came over and signed to do this show with Jeff Altman, who at the time was probably best known for acting comedy roles. He did the Dukes of Hazzard. He did a bunch of other stuff. Yep. But he wasn't really known as a stand-up until he was a regular on Solid Gold in the 80s. And he was their guide to American culture. Yeah. You saw this show for the first time about 10 years ago? Before Trio went off the air, they had it on their Brilliant But Canceled series. You saw it for the first time, and you were sitting there with your jaw on the floor. Yeah.
You want an actual definition of the term gobsmacked? That would have been me.
Yeah, it was like Kim took a frying pan to the face.
Yeah, it was like that was me that night watching this show.
Politically incorrect. The music was great, but they, like I said,
politically incorrect. Hell, it was racist.
It was racist in many ways. But at the time, it wouldn't have been thought as racist.
I looked at you and I was like, they really put this on TV, and you were like, yeah.
Yep. And you can still see them. Pink Lady and Jeff has been released on DVD by Bravo Entertainment. Mm-hmm. I think Shout Factory is the person that releases that. Not to say that it's a bad show.
It is.
No, not to say that its concept is bad. The comedy sketches are funny. The musical performances. Me and Kay were great singers, if phonetical for English stuff. And it's a riot to look at this and say, this is how not to do a variety show. Mm-hmm. Number 2, and this isn't the worst of the concepts coming up, it's still number 1. Number 2, Pink Lady, also known as Pink Lady and Jeff, from 1980.
Okay. Number 1.
Kim's number 1.
My number 1 on our list of dumb TV shows. Now, this TV show actually did something that a lot of other TV shows couldn't claim. They actually made me watch sports on TV, which is something that I rarely, never do. I mean, very super duper rarely.
I think I know what this is. I didn't think of this either, if it's what I think it is.
I am not a sports person when it comes to watching sports on television. Basically because I kind of feel like, well, if you're into sports, go play sports. I mean, I watch sports on TV that are sports that I would not normally do because they would kill me.
She watches sports that I watch. Skateboarding, snowboarding, skiing. She doesn't watch it. And we'll occasionally watch, and we watch the Super Bowl and occasionally the World Series if the Reds are in it.
I wouldn't watch any of that stuff because, I watch that stuff because I wouldn't do it. And I wouldn't do it because I have a sense of self-preservation. Athletes that, are extreme athletes, I have a lot of respect for you guys and gals. You're amazing people, and I have respect for all athletes, really. You do amazing stuff, and you're inspirations to people, and that's all fantastic and great. When something comes along, though, and keeps blasting in your ear how it's new and different and like nothing you've ever seen before, one of 2 things are going to happen. Number 1, it really is going to be new and different, and you've never seen anything like it before, and you go, wow, my life is completely changed. Or number 2, it's the exact same stuff you always saw before, just with a shiny new ribbon around it, and you go, F you, I just got screwed. Well,
this definitely fell into the latter.
Turn over, grab the bedpost, and smile, because we all got screwed. All of us who bought into the whole concept of the XFL.
Oh, I knew this was coming. I saw it a few seconds ago, but yeah, I totally forgot about this. This is good, too. This is really good.
The XFL was the whole idea of combining football with at the time, World Wrestling Federation, which is now World Wrestling...
Well, no, that's not fair. It's not fair to say that it was combining. Vince McMahon owned it, but they didn't really... It wasn't like wrestling and football. Make that clear.
Yeah, okay.
It was football with extreme rules.
That was the whole idea.
Yeah.
This is back when the WWE was the WWF.
Were they still the WWF?
Yes, they were.
Okay.
They were. And head honcho of the WWFE, however, Vince McMahon decided he wanted to get into the football business for whatever reason that I can't figure out to this day.
He was a football fan, but he didn't like the fact that they'd taken all the cool stuff away from it over the years for, health reasons.
The XFL was supposed to be football, but it was supposed to be extreme football. Now, they really didn't go into what extreme football meant. But from the way they made it sounded like people were going to be playing football while the stadium was being strafed by machine gun fire.
It was like the Running Man and Rollerball rolled
and they were
going to
release bears into the locker rooms at halftime or something. I don't know. They just made it sound like it was going to be so exciting and crazy and insane. And
NBC, gullible suckers that they've always been, bought into it.
Yeah. And some of us actually wasted our time and watched it. Mm-hmm. Like me.
Me too, for a few weeks.
I was like, all right, waiting for the extreme part.
Yeah.
Still waiting.
Yeah.
Seasons are changing, Vince. Come on. I was like, well, I just swallowed a whole lot of something unpleasant. This was... The scary thing is, the truly frightening thing is, there are talks going on right now about bringing it back.
Oh, good God, why?
I don't know.
Oh, good God, no.
I have no idea. I'm like, no. It didn't work the first time. Because, and I have to be perfectly honest, my knowledge of football is minuscule.
Yeah, mine too.
I know it's, you get the ball from your side to that side and get points. And then sometimes people come out and cheer, and that's it.
Yeah,
that's all I know.
Can I interject something?
Go for it.
Part of the problem with the XFL, and God love Vince for letting them do it, was the use of Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler as the play-by-play team on the Saturday night shows. Mm-hmm. Jim was a huge football fan, huge football fan, mm-hmm. and couldn't wait to do this. And it took away from the credibility of XFL because here are Monday Night Raw's two main announcers calling football games.
Yeah.
And I think that really took a lot of credibility away from it. As good as they were at it, they were great at it. But fans saw them as wrestling people.
Yeah. Not only that, there were 8 teams in the league. There was a Western Division and an Eastern Division. And while the names weren't as heartbreakingly stupid as they were on other shows that I could mention, Roller Jam, when you
leave Roller Jam alone. We both loved Roller Jam.
I loved Roller Jam. You loved Roller Jam. But when you
Practically
name a
nobody
team,
else did.
when you name a team from Chicago, the Riot,
well,
that's offensive. I'm sorry.
It was the Illinois Riot.
The Illinois Riot. I'm sorry, what? That's not cool.
No.
And apparently the XFL didn't learn from that either because we had the Chicago Enforcers. Yeah, because that doesn't sound like, ties to organized crime or something. And to get even worse, we had the New York/New Jersey Hitmen. Really? Really?
Well,
what?
It's better than calling them the Hoffas or something.
Oh, my frog. Are you serious? I mean, the other teams had names that were, they're very masculine. The Rage, the Extreme, the Outlaws, blah, blah. It's all very masculine and testosterone-y. I mean, that's the thing with this thing. You could just feel the testosterone.
Feel the testosterone. Watch the XFL.
Off the screen, and I was just like,
we got through 2 or 3 weeks before we gave up on it.
Yeah.
It was terrible.
It was a mutual decision, too. We just looked at each other and went, I can't anymore.
We can't deal with this anymore.
I can't. Can
and
you?
we were just watching the Saturday night ones, not the Sunday afternoon.
We quit. So my number one dumbest TV idea, the XFL.
It was terrible. Although I don't think it was the dumbest.
All right. Well, that's my definition. So what's yours?
My definition is as follows. Going back to NBC and that high concept thing.
Is this another Fred Silverman thing?
No.
Oh, good.
No, this was after Fred left. Fred was now a single producer who was producing Matlock and other things for NBC. But the wisdom around the NBC people, I don't know who was in charge of Saturday morning at the time. I know Warren Littlefield was in charge of the primetime programming around this time. NBC didn't know what to do with their Saturday morning shows. All of the Saturday morning stuff started following as cable started eroding into the ratings. Mm-hmm. A couple of years earlier, they'd picked up a show that Disney Channel had canceled. Disney Channel, when it was on Disney Channel, it was called Good Morning, Miss Bliss. They upped the ages and changed it over and made a few changes. Got rid of Haley Mills and called it Saved by the Bell. Saved by the Bell was a huge hit on NBC. The following year, they introduced a couple of companion programs for it. Saved by the Bell was at the end of the tail end. The idea was, hey, teenagers, we'll get the teenagers to stay home on Saturday morning by running this block of shows at the very end, because they'll still be home at 11 o'clock in the morning. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, Saved by the Bell was joined by another companion show, which I really loved, called Guys Next Door. Guys Next Door was this, it was to New Kids on the Block what the Monkees were to the Beatles for 1990. Starred 5 really talented guys and had music and comedy sketches and stuff. And it went well with Saved by the Bell, and it was a bona fide hit until Chris Wolf sued to get out of his contract. Mm-hmm. Boom. By Guys Next Door. They actually had a close to top 40 hit, too. But they also had come up with another idea that would fill in the next hour. Let me see. Let's all go into a strangely smelling smoke-filled room in 1990. And a few writers in there sniffing and toking and going, oh man, we gotta find something to fit into this. Hey, I know what, let's do this. We'll get a couple of people. And yeah, that's gonna be fun. Just get a couple people. One of them is gonna be a teenager. He's gonna be kinda hunky, so the chicks like him. He's gonna have a little talent, might be a little music from him. Oh, okay, I got it. And we'll have music and comedy. And we'll hire this other guy, this chain-smoking comedian to do this show with him. He was really funny on that MTV game show. We'll have him on there. Bring him on over and we'll have him host it with him. And best idea yet! We'll put it in a bowling alley!
I have no idea what you're talking about.
That's because it lasted 3 weeks. The show was called Too Hip for TV. It aired on Saturday mornings in September and early October of 1990, starring Ahmet Zappa in his first television role. He was the teenage hunk. And Colin Quinn from Remote Control as the other host. It was set in a mod fun bowling alley with people bowling behind them as they did jokes and sketches and had musical acts on. The problem was none of the musical acts anyone had ever heard of, and the comedy just wasn't funny. I'm like, oh my God, I wanted to see this because I've been a fan of Moon and Dweezil for years, and I knew Ahmed was coming up, and I thought this is going to be a good thing for him. Thank God he got out of the entertainment end and went into the production end. He's now a super huge movie and TV producer. He produced Timothy Green a couple of years ago and a bunch of others. He works for Disney and does a whole bunch of good stuff. But, oh man, this show was bad. I couldn't. I mean, it was a variety series with no live audience, with a comedian and a teenager nobody had ever heard of, set in a local bowling alley. I'm
staring at him right now with the blankest look on my face because it was
terrible.
I got nothing.
2, the number 2, hip, 4, the number 4, TV. 2, hip, 4, TV. And as I said, it ran, I think totally it ran 6 or 7 weeks because after the first 3 weeks, they cut it to a half hour. And it was gone before Guys Next Door was gone. Guys Next Door ended up leaving the air in February after Chris Wolf sued to get out of his contract, and they replaced it with repeats of Roomies, which was a sitcom from 5 years earlier with Burt Young and Corey Haim. So I'm like, okay, yeah, no. If you, seriously, you can find this show on YouTube, and it is terrible. Maybe some hipsters out there might find it ironically funny. I don't know. Because that's the whole vibe that was around this show. It's like kind of a hipster type thing. And unfortunately, it was 20 years before hipsters became cool. So, my number 1, Too Hip for TV from 1990.
All right. Well, okay, so let's go over our list of, each of our lists of the dumbest TV shows.
Yep.
My list from 10 to 1... Teen Titans Go, Melrose Place, the 2009 version, The Charmings, Tattooed Teenage Alien Fighters from Beverly Hills.
I still can't believe I forgot that one.
I can't believe I actually am able to say that. Squidbillies, Manimal, The Amazing Spider-Man, The $1.98 Beauty Show, Barney and Friends, and The XFL.
My top 10 are tied at 10, the Brady Bunch Hour, Brady Brides and the Brady's. Number 9, Partridge Family 2200 AD. Number 8, Tucker's Witch. Number 7, Super Train. Number 6, The Pat Sajak Show. Number 5, Amanda's by the Sea and Pain. Number 4, Rubik the Amazing Cube. Number 3, After MASH. Number 2, Pink Lady and Jeff. And my number 1, Too Hip for TV. And this is the first time I can think of where we didn't match a single show or song or anything.
I know, that's so
wow.
weird. I know.
All right, so it's your turn.
It is my turn. And
oh God.
So
when we come back in January.
Yes. When we come back in January, our list is going to be, each of us are going to do our top 10 movie musicals.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Top 10 movie musicals.
Is there a catch here?
Nope.
Just any movie musicals.
Any
movie
movie
that's going to be
musical.
hard. There's a lot of good musicals out there.
Yeah, I know. So that's why I figured I would do something like that. And no, there's no catch.
Okay.
My gosh, you make me sound so devious.
Well, I know you, don't I?
Crap.
In any case, you're like emo Kylo Ren. Anyway.
You take that back. My balls are much bigger than his.
Okay, fair enough. So, this weekend on Subject Cinema, obviously we'll be talking about Star Wars, The Last Jedi, plus a few other things. We hope you'll check it out Sundays in the mid-evening. Mm-hmm. Platinum Rose's Garden is off till January.
Yes.
Show is on hiatus.
Yes, but you can, if you haven't checked it out yet, you can go check out Platinum Rose's Garden for my review of Supernatural's last episode before they went on hiatus, The Bad Place.
Plus all their other season episodes.
And you can all check that out over at PlatinumRosesGarden.com.
Anthony, Aunt B, and Pee Wee will be back this weekend, next weekend, with Comic Grotto. They've got 2 shows coming up later in December. They're coming back a little sooner than they planned. And they'll have a lot of stuff. That's over at ComicGrotto.com. And Cavebabble with Eric and Lowry Lyon. Always great stuff over there. Movies, games, travelogue shows, odd things to eat, and a lot more at Cavebabble.com. Mm-hmm. And don't forget to check out our mini shows. 3-Minute Weekend on Friday, Tuesday Digidex on Tuesdays, the latest new releases in theaters with 3-Minute Weekend, and on home video with Tuesday Digidex.
Yep.
We have a bunch of new projects coming up in the new year, including a brand new, our first ever audio drama production coming up in January, and you definitely want to check it out. So keep tuned to everything by tuning into eCinemaOne.com, hooking up with us on Twitter. She's Platinum Rose L. I'm usually eCinemaBoston, but I'm also under eCinemaOne and TKR1. Oh, the Kirkham Report will be back in a couple of weeks, too. I'm still finalizing all the stuff, and you'll want to check it out. Most notably, please come over and join our Patreon patrons. We could certainly use the help. We have a lot of things we would love to be able to do. We also need some new equipment, but we can't do it without your help. If you like this show, please donate. It starts at $2 a month, and we will have a single donation option up soon, and we hope you'll take a look at that. And don't forget to like, if you're listening on Facebook or somewhere else, like us on Facebook, share us with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe so you'll always know when the newest show is available. And you can do all those things with any place you listen, including SoundCloud, YouTube, Libsyn, on our website, through our player, or wherever it is. Definitely check it out.
And we'd also like to say, since we won't be back till after the first of the year, we would like to say for everybody who celebrates, we wish you and all yours
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, and to make sure that if you are out
Fantastic Festivus.
That too.
Yeah.
And make sure if you're out and you're out celebrating and going to parties and things like that, make sure you have a designated driver so if you're hitting that eggnog a little too hard, somebody gets you home safe.
And don't forget about Happy New Year, too.
So this is Kim Brown.
And I'm T.C. Kirkham.
And I hope that you will come back to Front Row 5 and 10 and help us count up our next awesome list.
See you next time.
Bye.
You've been listening to Front Row 5 and 10 with Kim Brown and T.C. Kirkham.
Podcasting's choice. From coast to coast, continent to continent, right here 24/7.